My name is Alan Parker, and I've been dealing with TMS issues since I was in high school, a long time ago. And I was just dizzy all the time and wake up in the middle of the night with vertigo, sometimes throw up. And I went to see this doctor, and it was a horrible experience. He didn't listen to me. He had figured this out in 30 seconds what was wrong with me, and he started arguing with me he asked me, what does dizziness mean? And I tried to describe what I thought it meant. He said, no, that's wrong. And I would explain to him my symptoms, and he would correct me on everything because it didn't fit with his diagnosis. It was just this unbelievable, it was such a horrible experience. The guy, by the end, he had a completely wrong diagnosis. It was exactly not what I was saying. It was something totally different. And I was so furious, and I felt much worse after that. And this is what Steve says in his books, and what Sarno says, that we go and see someone and it's a bad experience, we get sicker. And that's what happened with me. I was fortunate enough in 2000, when I started having severe problems. I had started a business. I was super angry. And I started having ear problems, vertigo, dizziness, hearing loss. And I was fortunate in that my dad handed me a book. He said, it's going to be okay. He handed me a book, and it was a book by Dr. Sarno. I believe it was called Freedom from Neck and Back Pain. And I read that book, and I backed off of my intense schedule and started taking care of myself a little better, and everything was fine after that. I'd been dealing with an ENT doctor, and he was baffled that everything was fine. He seemed pretty annoyed, actually, that I had gotten better, because he was sure that I had something that would never heal. And so I tried to tell him some of what I'd done. He wasn't interested, and as I said, was more interested in his own ego and how that had affected him. And this has been my experience with ENTs. I had the problem come back later when, again, I was really stressed and really striving and really struggling and trying to achieve, and just had that mindset and pushing myself really hard. Push. And I gave up the business later after about 20 years, and my symptoms improved after that. And then I read Steve's book, Back Pain, Permanent Healing. I've got it highlighted, all kinds of different highlights all over the place. And that was also helpful. But I've been working on this fiction novel, and once again, just really pushing myself, trying to, it's got to be the best novel ever, and have to work these long hours and get it done quickly, and this kind of mindset. And I set up an appointment with Steve. And one of the first things that struck me is I just realized, oh man, this guy's the real deal. He's not just talking about this stuff. He's living it. I could just tell he was happy. And there was something about the session. It wasn't that he said anything new, really, that I hadn't heard in his book before. But for some reason, when I was talking to him, it was over a Zoom connection, but still, I heard what he was saying in a different way. It really sank in deeply. And within a week, my symptoms were gone. And they have been since. That was back in September, and this is almost February. So early September, October, November, December, January. So almost 6 months later, and it's not like there's no symptoms. They're tiny, every once in a while, little. And you know what? But it doesn't even worry me. It used to, when that dizziness would start coming on, I would freak out, and I would go, oh, here we go. This could last for weeks. Or I don't do that anymore. And that was partly some of the attitude that he helped me to get into and to stay in the moment. And since then, I've been working more on meditation and other practices that help me be in the moment, like yoga, for example. Not as a way to heal, just as a way to learn to be present. And just yesterday, for the first time, I had some emotions waking up in the morning that I would call uncomfortable. And these are the kinds of things that I would always want to escape, that I never wanted to have. And for the first time, I was actually grateful for these feelings. And I didn't want to run away from them. I just wanted to go ahead and feel what I was feeling. And that was so new for me. Another thing that's new for me now is I no longer work on this book, for example. I used to try to get myself well so that I could do something like run the business or do the book. I'd always try to push myself. How could I get the most, productivity out of myself? I treated myself like some kind of machine that I was trying to optimize or something. And now it's like, no, it's the opposite. I do the book sort of because I have to. It's really calling me, but it's for me. I enjoy it. Days that I'm working on it, I enjoy it. And so now that's why I'm doing it. It's a complete flip. So this is a big change. And it's not just the work with Steve. There's other things I'm doing too, but it all works together. But I'm very grateful. I'm very grateful for what he does and how he's helped so many people. And he's helped me. It really is a life changer. And I hope that what I'm saying now is hopeful to is useful to someone else out there. Yeah, and hopeful. Like there definitely is hope. I know I've been there when I've been in the depths of the worst TMS and couldn't get out of bed for days and just had horrible vertigo that would make me throw up. It was just horrible. It doesn't seem like there's any hope sometimes in that situation, but here I am. And this does feel more permanent to me because there's definitely a change in the way I think now. And I'm grateful to Steve and to Dr. Sarno and for the opportunity to share this with other people. My TMS symptoms started in high school with migraines, and I had those occasionally through college as well and on into my 20s. And then it switched from that primarily to ear issues. So not so much problem with headaches, but then I had dizziness and hearing loss and tinnitus, vertigo. And that started at an extremely stressful time for me. So I went to see the doctor, got a bad diagnosis on that. He said there was a hole in my eardrum, which the ENT that I saw later said no. He was really annoyed that the doctor had said that. And he thought I might have Meniere's disease. He also said, though, that I was missing the dizziness/vertigo piece of it. But what do you know? A night or two later, I woke up in the middle of the night with vertigo. And I didn't realize it at the time that was just my mind saying, oh, here's the other symptom. Let me fill that in. At that time, it was believed that Meniere's, you got it and you kept it. And the ENT was really annoyed that he had been wrong in his diagnosis. Like, he wasn't happy that I had gotten better, and he didn't want to hear anything about how I had done it, of course. He thought that was quackery. But he was annoyed that his diagnosis was wrong. That's amazing egos with some of these people. Absolutely incredible. But I was doing the same thing, just very driven behavior, really hard on myself, not taking care of myself, not keeping my connections with people going. letting myself catastrophize about things going on in the world. So one of the reasons I'm doing this is obviously I want other people to be able to heal the way that I have. And I have a couple friends. They don't have the same TMS symptoms that I do. They have more in the way of migraines. And I can't even talk about any of this to them. They get so furious with me, so angry when I talk about TMS or the psychological aspects of this problem, and that it's not physical. Even if I'm just talking about it for myself, well, here, I'm just telling my story. And that doesn't bother me, it doesn't upset me, only in the way that I'd like to see them be able to heal and not be suffering so much. But one of the things that they both of my friends said, was that they feel like this philosophy, this idea, puts the blame for their illness on them. And I can see where they're coming from. I felt that way before. But it also, another way to look at it is it provides agency. If migraines are just some mysterious thing that doctors can't figure out how to treat, and people who have them can't figure out how to treat, but then you provide a way to treat it, then that's a good thing, right? But there's this underlying part where, as Steve says, it's doing a job. It's protecting them. And I'd also like to say, there's no reason to feel blamed or to feel ashamed or feel like anyone is judging in this sense of the word. I mean, if you just look at the epidemic of TMS diseases, it's just growing and growing and growing. And our society is becoming more and more isolated. As technology grows, an unfortunate side effect is that people are more and more isolated. So we have all these creature comforts, we have all these conveniences, but people don't have deep connections, I believe, in the way that they used to. And I've done some traveling in the third world, and I've seen how people, in some cases, are still very, very connected. And there's just a sense of well-being that I get being with these people, even though physically they may have a lot more problems than we do. And so it's not that anyone is to blame. We're all dealing with this. It's not your fault that this is happening. If you're listening to this now, I just want to say that very clearly. It's not something you should be blamed for, or that you should be ashamed of, or you feel like there's something wrong with you because you haven't dealt with it yet. It's very difficult to live in the world right now. And the way we're raised and all the messages that we get, it pulls us in different directions to the point that we have trouble coping. And so the TMS is coming out in a ugly sort of way to help us. So I just wanted to add that there's no one blaming anyone here. And the idea is just to hope that you will hear this and that it will provide you with what you need so that you can heal. And it can happen right away. It doesn't have to take a long time.